Hi there, and welcome to the audio commentary for Ben. My name is Nathaniel Thompson from Mondo Digital, and I am thrilled to be here today with the star of the movie, Lee Montgomery. Hi, Lee.
Hello. Thank you, sir.
So now, of course, this is the sequel to Willard, and of course, we even get to watch the last 5 minutes here. Now, did you know Willard when you were hired to come onto the film, or were you too young to see it?
A little bit. I was too young to see it, but I hear the opening squeaking of the rats there, which is kind of cool over the black. Yeah, I met Bruce briefly. I think he might have stopped by on the first or second day to say hi. Mm-hmm. And I knew from the commercials, mostly, the advertising that was out, and tear 'em up, Ben. So, yeah, I had the concept. I think I probably saw the end of this. Oh, it's the best. and hadn't seen Bruce since then until recently we went and did... one of the horror shows together, and what a great guy.
Yeah.
What a sweetheart. You've probably maybe seen him since recently. And just what a pro, unaffected, just a real sweetheart.
Yeah. So did you get to see the movie before you made Ben at any point? Or
I don't think so. I think it was a little too
rough?
Too rough for me. My parents, I was saying, and introducing Lee Harcourt Montgomery. I wasn't Harcourt for very long.
Yeah.
It got abbreviated to...
Yeah, you were Lee H. Montgomery for a while.
And then they just dropped it all. I think there was a psychic was consulted at some point, seriously, in the 70s with my family, and there was a suggestion for a better numerological name.
Speaking of numerology, I should mention this came out in 1972, which in the Chinese zodiac is the year of the rat.
That's perfect. I seem to remember that, actually.
Now, this was actually your second feature film, of course, and the second time that you had starred opposite an animal. This was after the Disney film $1 Million Duck.
Well, there you go. That was just Mo DeCesso.
Yeah, Mo DeCesso.
Mo was a big man on campus back then. He was doing everything, I think.
Yeah, he did Willard also.
Yes, he did Willard. So the rats were already well in play at that point. Some of my favorite rats on the set were the Socrates rats, which, of course, they were all dead in the movie, but he still had them on the set with us. I'm sorry, what was the original question?
Oh, the question was, this was your second film after $1 Million Duck, so it seems like you had this thing for starring opposite animals at the time.
Everything. I was always the kid with a hawk, with a duck, with a rat. I mean, almost every movie I did, I was paired with some animal.
Yeah. Now, the way you were discovered is actually kind of funny as well, because you come from an entertainment family. There are a lot of actors, your siblings, and through your whole lineage. But I know you've done some child modeling, but the way you got into acting is sort of funny. Could you talk about how that came to be?
Yeah. As rumor has it, my dad was producing something, and they had a kid who was supposed to be on the set, and the kid fell out for whatever reason, got sick, and one of the producers said, "Hey, Cease, you've got a boy that age, don't you?" And he said, "You do it at your own risk," because I was nuts. I would climb the walls. I was such a hyper kid. And for some reason, I got on the set, and I was so well behaved and completely past life, I don't know what it was, but I went on there, and I was, much to his dismay, made him look like a liar, but I did just great, and I loved it, and I got it kind of instantly. So, yeah, that was how we fell into it. And then my sister came down, from Canada. She got discovered for a movie called Hey Cinderella, which was the first Muppet movie. And then we all followed suit, and we both went under contract to Universal Studios. And first one I did was $1 Million Duck before that. And then this one, they actually rented me out to Paramount to do this, or Cinerama releasing, was it?
Yeah, Cinerama.
And there he is, Phil Carlson. Yeah, he was such a doll. What a sweet man.
Now, the funny thing is, Willard and this film were both directed by guys who had never done horror films before, which I think makes them kind of more interesting in a way.
I think so, yeah. This had kind of Willard had, I saw it later in life, had a very creepy vibe to it, the whole thing. But they kind of followed through with this. They were pretty well matched, the two of them. But this was, sort of here we go. I remember this day. I think this was probably one of the first days we shot. And, of course, it was a night shoot, as you can see. which is always fun for a kid when you get to stay up late at night.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember vividly doing this scene with Rosemary and Meredith.
Mm-hmm.
And there he is, oh my Lord. Who is that? I don't even... And the strange little curl that comes up on the side of the head there. I think I was forever trying to tame that curl. Kind of long hair for that, but I guess it was the early 70s, right? Just out of the 60s.
Yeah. A lot of mop top hair back then.
That's right, yeah. I think they used to call me a moppet.
Yeah.
M-O-P-P-I-T.
I think one of the funny, when I was looking at some of the old reviews for Ben, getting ready, and one of them, it said they compared you to a young Dean Stockwell, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, that's kind of cool. I don't think I would have known what the heck that meant back then. What was Dean? What was his big movie as a kid?
As a kid, he did a lot of teenage movies, a lot of juvenile delinquent movies.
Yeah, that's right.
And of course, now Blue Velvet is his big one, but
naturally, and he went on to have a really good career after Blue Velvet again.
Yeah, huge one. So if we go back to DeCesso for a minute, I guess he and his wife Norma, did Norma work on this one as well?
Norma did,
and I think they upped the number of rats was between 400 to 500 on Willard, and this one it was something like 1,400, I think.
I think so, close to 2,000. There was one scene later where we're in the sewer tunnel, and they'd built this amazing sewer set, and they had it was a half tunnel. And they had a wood plank that was basically holding back all the rats. And then they pulled up this wood plank, and they all came rushing at me.
And were you scared?
I wasn't scared, but it was. I was used to it at that point. I think my mother was probably a little more worried about that day because they were a little unpredictable. And I haven't mentioned on this, but the secret, the key to training rats is peanut butter. Yeah. Rats love peanut butter. They'll kill each other and eat through wood to get to peanut butter, which who'd have thunk it? So there's a lot of peanut butter on the set. All the guys that are lying there being eaten alive, they're covered in little peanut butter, little dollops of peanut butter everywhere.
Did you bring some crackers? When you were hungry?
They didn't want the crackers. They just wanted the peanut butter. They were. I wasn't too afraid of the rats. In the very beginning, I was I as an idea, I was like, oh yeah, it sounds great. And I think the first day I met Mo, and he was very good with me as a kid, as was his wife. I was a little freaked out. My mom, who we thought would have been ridiculously squeamish, this little 5'4" diminutive thing, she said, "Oh, come on, it's no big deal." And she held the rat, and so it was all good after that. But I actually, years and years later, I started directing some stuff. And I was doing a music video, and I needed a horse. And I called Mo. And unfortunately, Mo had passed, but Norma was still around. No, actually, I take that back. Mo was still around, and I got to see Mo again. And he rented me a horse. I think he gave it to me for free, honestly, to do my music video. And so we had a chance to rekindle before he passed. And I checked in a couple of years later, and Mo had passed, but Norm was still around. And I loved them both. As a kid, I fell in love with everybody on the set. They all became family. They were like my best buds. So crew on up.
Did Mo give you any pointers when you were first being introduced to the rats? I mean, was there any advice that he gave you?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I think one of them was never get between a mom and a baby rattlesnake. It was never get between them and their peanut butter. Seriously, that was one of the lessons. You probably weren't too smart to stick your finger in the cage as well. Now, interestingly, and I believe it was during Ben, I was at a friend's house. Someone I didn't know that well in school, and I was basically chased by their dog, and in an effort to escape him, I slammed the door behind me, caught my fingers in the door, and smashed my two fingers. They had to be surgically reapplied and all this stuff. And that was in the middle of doing this, and I remember every day on the set I would have to sneak away and have these bandages fixed, and I think they must have shot around it. So yeah, I had a weird little trauma, it seems, in the middle of this shoot.
Hope they didn't make you do the marionettes with your fingers.
I think it was post marionette scene.
know that?
Yeah, funny. I just had that flashback.
Every animal will run away if you give it a chance.
Now, do you remember anything about
Maybe the
Ben
only
in
one.
particular, the rat? Because he was actually an award-winning animal performer by that point. He won awards for Willard. He was a bit of a celebrity.
He was, and I'm not sure. The problem was there was, I think, 5 or 7 Bens.
Mm-hmm.
So they had their hero Ben rats. So it was hard to sort of get attached to any one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, honestly, I mean, they were all rats. They didn't have a whole lot of personality.
Yeah.
Excuse me. They had.
But these reaction shots are so good, though.
Oh, I know.
I don't know how they did that.
And the little squinty eyes and
Yeah.
everything. Well, in the big scenes, they had the cages divided into wood-gnawing rats and rats that stood on their hind legs. And again, they were all trained with this little beep apparatus, Pavlovian style. And it was all around peanut butter. And once they'd push this button, if all the rats were in different areas, it looks like everyone's scurrying and doing different things. But they had them separated into their different talents. They were trained to do various stuff. And Ben was pretty versatile. I think Ben was trained to, do most anything. Run through, stand up, go through a door, take a path like they would with a dog or a regular, a cat or an animal of a larger size. So there goes the cat right now.
Yeah.
And Ben's not looking too happy about that. But he's like, I will kill you. You are just a big rat to me. Yeah, it's true. Those are great reaction shots. He's a better actor than I was, I think. And that twitching nose.
So, no, I think one of my favorite stories from the set of Willard is that they always had an ASPCA monitor on the set, and apparently when he would look away, supposedly some of the sound guys, in order to get some squeaks, they would kind of like squeeze their tails a little bit when the guy wasn't looking.
Oh, no.
I know, isn't that mean? So, was there an ASPCA guy during the whole shoot of this? Do you remember anything about that?
Gee whiz, I don't remember that, but I know Mo was very protective of the rats,
Yeah.
and I think he was very good with because he had. I'm not sure, but I think he might have been in A Cry in the Wilderness. He might have done the skunk on that. Again, I was always working with some ridiculous animal, including skunks. No, I think he was pretty well known for being very good to his animals. So.
Yeah. I understand the rats were very well treated during the film. Like the worst thing was that, like I said, just they would give them like a little
scoop on their tail to piss them off. Yeah,
just make them go.
Oh, there he goes. That's right. Now the walls are full of rats.
Yeah.
I think it was on the set this day. I remember this scene being shot. Of course, I wanted to be on the set all the time.
Yeah.
Even when I wasn't shooting, I wanted to be on there. And my mom would indulge me with that once in a while. But of course, you had to go to school, and it was a big thing. You could only work a certain amount of hours.
Right.
Very short amount of hours, actually.
And what was because you were a very busy actor, especially by the time, after this came out, you were like back to back to back. Your TV credits alone are insane.
Well, that was a function of being under contract to Universal, because they were paying me weekly.
Yeah.
So,
and they re-upped you like once or twice, I think. Right?
I think so, yeah. But they rented me out for this. They made a lot more money than I did on this movie. So that was the concept. They were paying me weekly. So, I think I did 4 Marcus Welby's, 3 or 4 medical centers. And same as Belinda. We were on every episode, FBI.
Well, you were on a very big episode of Mod Squad. I think you
Mod
got
Squad. I got an Emmy nomination.
Yeah.
For that.
And The Harness, I think, was the other
And The
big one.
Harness. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was a tough movie. That was I remember. Everybody was great. Again, I've been so lucky. I don't think there was any bad seeds in my career. But Lauren Green, oh, did I love Lauren. He was such a sweetheart.
Take it easy.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I got to work with a lot of really wonderful people.
Now, were you aware of how legendary some of these people were? Did someone say, that's Arthur O'Connell that you're working with here?
I was a fan.
Okay, Kelly, thanks.
I probably knew who Arthur was. I was a weird kid. I liked nostalgic stuff. Like I said, I loved Danny Kaye. I knew all of Danny Kaye's movie, like chapter and verse. And so, yeah, I was a pretty big fan of most of the people I worked with. But, it's funny, even as an adult now, I just don't get starstruck like that. There's a few people that might do it to me, but for the most part, more musicians. If I was to meet Peter Gabriel, I'd probably be like, I wouldn't be able to talk. But I got really used to it, you know. It was what I did. I didn't really know anything else. And Betty Davis was clearly the biggest.
Yeah.
And I knew, you know, Bet from, in particular, The Nanny. It's not a very well-known film, I think, and I'm not even sure if you can get it out there anywhere.
It's
you
on
can't-
DVD.
It's
yeah.
on, but it wasn't for a long time.
For a long time, yeah. It took a while, but yeah, then eventually it came out. Yeah.
And you just used to have to, and I'm sure, of course, I saw it on late night TV, you know, or whatever late night was as a kid. But that movie terrified me.
I would imagine.
She was so evil, and I was a big fan of hers. And when I met her, of course, I think I was probably a little intimidated on the first day. And oh my gosh, you know, we just became the best of friends, she and I. She was such a sweetheart to me, and very protective. And my mom was very protective, in the studio system and the studio teacher. You know, they were all about, you know, making sure the hours and the schooling was done. We had our favorite teacher, Kay Ray, who we used all the time, and we were all best friends. But when I met Bet, she instantly took me under her wing. I used to come up. We were working at in Oakland doing burnt offerings, and Bet would. We did one night where there was. It was a night shoot, and you're allowed a certain amount of time with a kid at night. And it was one of those nights, and you may have heard of this, on a set once in a while, people get really tired and they get the giggles. And it becomes infectious and impossible to stop. And no matter how much you try, everybody finally shuts up and, okay, let's do this thing. And then the assistant camera guy here. And everybody cracks up. And it was getting ridiculous. And I think I was crying. I was laughing so hard. And Beth said, oh, this is bloody ridiculous. He's done. And she took me and my mom and my teacher, and she marched off the set, and that was the end of the day. You know, and it was probably 2:00 in the morning, but oh my goodness, look at that!
All right, critic.
Look at me! Look how much I love Meredith. Look at me looking at her. I'm like,
I'll eat the sandwich. You try it.
So now, of course, this is Meredith. Now we know her as Meredith Baxter Burney.
yeah,
I mean, what was she like? What kind of relationship did you guys have?
loved her. I was saying earlier to someone outside that I wanted to go home with her at the end of the shoot. I was like, we can't stop this now. This has just begun. We're like the best. She was instantly my sister. I mean, you could see from just that look that I had with her. Mm-hmm. I was listening I hung on every word, and she was just a love. They were all so great with me as a kid. I had a very, very good experience in all the films I did. I was very lucky. Mm-hmm. People were just wonderful with me. And I remember that house. I forget who. That was an Academy Award-winning writer, I believe. Robert somebody, not... And we used his house as the set for the exterior stuff. And I remember he had a back guest house that was stacked to the ceiling with old scripts, and I used to go in there and just, I don't know why I loved all this nostalgic stuff, and I would sit there and read these scripts, and it was a lot of fun. Of course, this is a set now. Now we're on a sound stage. And she was really lovely, too. Rosemary was a total sweetheart.
Here's Danny. Workshop.
Oh, it's so funny, yeah, flashing back to all this stuff. And it, as an actor now, it so looks like a set to me, the way it's lit. And although you can see no, you really can't. That's not really the ceiling there.
Well, yeah, I should mention we're recording this to actually the VHS because the new master is being made. So there's actually some open headroom here that you won't see because when it's theatrically matted correctly, you won't see all that stuff. But yeah,
got it.
On the old VHS, if you have the old VHS, you can actually see like the edges of the lights, like at the top of the screen a few times.
Funny.
Yeah, which is not on purpose. That's not a goof from on the movie.
Isn't that interesting? So that's just the formatting. Yeah, we didn't see that in the original film.
Yeah, you won't be seeing that on the Blu-ray.
Oh, funny. Okay, well, there you go. And look at Meredith. What a cutie.
Girl your age is entitled.
I mean, you really believe this is a family. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, you totally buy it.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I fell right in, and they're smart. They were actors, I was an actor too, obviously, but I was a kid, and it was so easy. It was make believe. You don't go through a process when you're a kid. You just you buy it and you do it. But poor little Danny and his failing heart.
Oh. So now, since you mentioned musicians earlier, I mean, you've actually have you're a pretty good musician in your own right.
Yes, thank you.
On the side. Now, how did you feel about having to get 2 songs to sing in this movie?
That was awesome. I mean, I was very disappointed that my rendition of Ben was like a talking rendition, right? I'm like, I was supposedly writing it as I was doing it. Ben, the 2 of us need look no more. It was like so silly. But I got to meet with Walter Scharf and Don Black, who wrote the song or songs.
Both songs, yeah.
Yeah, and again, I was so lucky. Everybody really took a shine to me. I mean, I guess I was an affable little guy, and everybody just made me feel like the best thing, And they were so sweet to me. Somebody taught me how to use these marionettes. Oh, hey, that's not bad. Look at that. I was a little confused by it at first, but they had someone. And I may be being redundant because I just did another interview before this, but this was, now of course I wasn't that good. Yeah.
Well, the marionettes, in the credits it says marionettes are done by Renee.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
I remember Renee, but I don't know what he went on to do. But this day was particularly special because on this day, Phil Carlson, who was the director, was good friends with Danny Kaye, and Danny Kaye came on the set this day. And I got to meet him, and I was enamored and starstruck. And of all the days to come in when I'm doing a little musical number, I think I was probably fairly intimidated, knowing all of his work, but. That's right. Now I'm about to have my little heart failure episode, right? Oh, no, wait. They come in first. Yeah. They come in instead of... Oh, that's right. I give them the stink eye, don't I? I'm just going to you guys. Let's see. Industrious little guy out there. Okay, so I haven't met Ben yet. That's right. So it's just getting ready to happen, isn't it? Oh, what are you doing? What are you looking at? Oh, so they don't come in till later. I think they interview me later. Yeah. And of course, wait, what do you think the sandwich is? I wonder. Peanut butter. It was. I remember it was a peanut butter sandwich. I wonder if you can tell. Oh, yeah. That's good. Yep, there it is. Peanut butter and jelly. Dead giveaway.
So now, pretty soon in the film, you'll be performing, Ben's song. Most people call it Ben now, of course, but it's technically it's Ben's song.
Oh, it is Ben's song.
It is
That's
Ben's
right.
song, yeah. Which was, of course, was nominated for an Oscar. Michael Jackson sang it at the Oscars. But I mean, you get to say in history books, you got to do the song first.
That's true. I got to, and I did this before Michael recorded it. I know that. Yeah, but what can you say? I mean, that really put this. I don't know if this film would have had the attention that it did. If it wasn't for Michael. But, strange little movie about a boy and a rat. Huh? Yeah. And on the heels of Willard, which was... this had all the violence of Willard, but for some reason, they wanted to give it... Because Willard was an evil little turd, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But, look at this guy. Oh, poor little kid. With his heart failure and his pet rat. But then I got a little mean, too, right? Later, I sick him on the... Yeah. Now, who was that kid? I think he went on to do stuff because we used to go up for the same stuff. The neighbor kid. I think he was a little older than me. Yeah. The red-haired guy.
The little bully, yeah.
Yeah, the bully. Uh-oh.
But you're not really in any of the super scary scenes, I mean, it's funny because this, unlike Willard, which is pretty calm the first hour, this one starts off like, bam, the rats are attacking. And then, you've got this kind of a lull for a long time where... Nothing really that bad happens, and then of course at the end there's the sewer stuff, but you're not in that. So
it's the old A-B thing, right? It's like the train and the calm person standing on the tracks of the train. The calm, yeah. So they were cutting back and forth. You're right. I didn't. Well, we were down in the sewer a lot, right? We were Meredith and I were sloshing around down that sewer, which thank God wasn't a real one.
Yeah.
Although there was one on the street there that we had to crawl into. that was an exterior shot. And I think they hopefully had cleaned it up a little bit. But I think it was more of a storm drain than a sewer. I remember this guy. Poor guy, here we go. Comes in the rats on his arm, right? He goes back to get his cookie, and son of a gun! I remember him being very disturbing. I remember thinking he was a very good actor, because remember at the end of this now, he's sitting there and he's just traumatized, right, by the rats, isn't he? And Campanella and Kaz and Arthur are just shaking their heads. That's pretty good. I think Phil said, like a little kid that doesn't understand what happened, I think he directed him. It's pretty campy, Campanella.
So, did you know who Joe Campanella was? Like, I guess The Bold Ones was probably was a big TV show around this time.
Yeah, I can't really remember if I did or didn't. I don't think I was as familiar with his stuff. Arthur, I think I recognized from some of the older movies, because I was a buff about the older films. And Kaz was a real sweetheart. He's a very nice guy. Oh, that's right. He's always going to smoke, and then he snaps it in half. He quit smoking. That was their little gag through the whole film, I think, right? Yeah, he does that repeatedly.
Their business. Their
business, that's correct. That was their three-object exercise, as they say in acting class. But it's all calm back at the... What the heck was it? Danny? What was my last name in this film? Do you even know? Danny.
Well, Kirtland, I think, is the dad's name, so I guess it's Kirtland.
Kirtland?
Yeah. So like they never really call you Danny Kirtland in the movie.
No. And this guy, I remember him as well. He went on to do a lot of stuff. He was a character actor.
You're Mrs. Garrison, right?
Yes. This is my daughter, Eve.
How do you do?
Garrison.
Garrison, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Danny Garrison.
Garrison, yeah.
Is there any danger?
No, just a precautionary measure, Mrs. Garrison. See you tomorrow. Thank you.
Your boy's a rat wrangler. That's right. And then she... Oh, well, I don't want to ruin the movie. I keep jumping ahead.
Well, hopefully people have watched it before if they're hearing this.
Well,
so. Yeah. Probably not the greatest way to watch it when it's going the first time around.
No, really. Watch it and then listen to the commentary. Shut up.
It's very confusing.
Yeah, really.
Like, what a talky movie.
Well, this is one of the rare instances where I actually have...
I have a friend. Who? A rat. A rat? Where? He had to leave. He had things to do.
I had things to do.
Where was it? Where, Danny? It wasn't a real rat, Mother. Sure was.
So now, when this came out, they had like a full bio that came out in the press kit about you, and they said that the quote was, "Despite a promising future in film, Lee has his heart set on a career in baseball."
That's probably true. I loved baseball. And again, for some weird reason, I think it was a past life or something. I loved like Dizzy Dean and Shoeless Joe Jackson. And I don't know why. I had all these... I used to go down to a place called Alpha Books, and they had all kinds of old sports magazines, like vintage stuff, and comic books. And I was really into comic books, and I can't remember the lady's name. But I said, hey, how do you feel if I come down and work for you for a few hours a week and you give me free comics? And she loved me. She took a shine to me. And so I would go down at like 9 years of age and, child labor laws aside. And I would work down there. And so I had all these old vintage baseball magazines, and I would cut these guys out. I had them all over my wall, and I was totally into Little League, so who knows? I don't know if I ever claimed that was really... But that sounds like a 9-year-old dream, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Baseballs. I collected. I was very into everybody at the time. I mean, that was when Hank Aaron was big, and Harmon Killebrew, and yeah, I had all these, all the sets of stuff, which, of course, like everybody else, I gave away or lost at some point. They'd probably be worth millions now if I had them. But
Look no more.
here it comes.
We've both found what we were looking for.
Am I?
She's like, that song's catchy.
With a friend to call my
No.
own. I'll never be alone. And you, my friend, will see. You got a friend.
Okay,
in
kind
me.
of awful. Certainly ain't no Michael.
Yeah.
Ben,
But she did a good job to start the day, so, you know.
Yeah. Flare the nostrils. Really consider it now. What's that next lyric?
feel you're not wanting
There's a
me.
very strange lyric. Very strange. Everything about it was kind of strange, right?
I mean, what was it like after this movie came out and suddenly you hear that song all over the place? I mean,
That was awesome. It was awesome. Of course, I was a big fan of everything, music and film and all that stuff. So, going to the lobby, I remember for $1 Million Duck, the first time I saw coming soon from Disney, $1 Million, so the same was true on this. Very exciting when this came out. And yeah, it was very strange hearing Ben all the time on the radio. And
Like everybody was covering it. I mean, like Roger Williams, all these guys did cover versions of it. They're all over the place. I mean,
oh, really? I
Yeah.
don't know that I remember that so much. I should do a cover of this.
yeah.
Oh, Michael. I miss him.
Yeah.
It's almost 9 o'clock.
It's funny. Michael said it was one of his favorite songs that he ever
Oh, yeah.
sang.
Apparently he had a copy of this, and he used to watch it like at least once a week or more than once a week. He had his own copy of Ben. And,
Oh.
and I always meant to reconnect with him at some point, and unfortunately we never did. I just never... He never pursued it. I never pursued it. But I know he was a big fan. Of course, we were roughly the same age. I think he was a couple of years older than me at the time. So we were both sort of doing that childhood thing. Of course, he had a tougher go than I was.
Yeah.
Look at the space between. You want to lose those two? No, I lost them. Those are the new front teeth. Look at me. I look like a little rat, actually. It kind of works. I've got the two front teeth, the little space in between them. Those teeth are gigantic. There's nothing else in my mouth like that. It's just those two. Oh, my God. Okay, do sing it.
There you
I
go.
still have those albums. I still have the soundtrack albums that they had, the old...
The old 45 and everything.
No, it was actually... I have a 45 of Michael, but they had these big, giant, thick, long play, LPs, as they used to call them. And that was, what they played for playback. Oh, the famous store scene.
Shameless ad for Tide.
That's my girlfriend saying hello.
Cameo.
Cameo. A shameless ad for Tide. And now you just did another shameless ad for Tide. Thank you for advertising.
I still use it.
Send me all the free Tide you can.
You're sitting in
You're soaking in it. That's a different product.
it.
You're sitting
Are
in
you
it.
sitting in it? I watched it.
Tony the Tiger. Now, since we're in a grocery store, there was another quote about you in the press release for this I thought was kind of funny, that apparently you said you were described as reluctantly a vegetarian, that your mom said that when you ate meat, it made you go crazy.
No, I was a reluctant vegetarian because my parents... Well, that's funny. Was that far back? I can't remember. I don't think... I thought we didn't become vegetarians for years after that, or health food nuts, as they used to call us back then. Yes, I was for sure a reluctant vegetarian, and I used to sneak away and get hamburgers, and that was terrible. It was a family decision that we were going to become vegetarians, and I wasn't having it. I was a little strong-willed, for sure.
How long did that hold out?
Went on for many years with me faking it, and then later in my life, last few years of my teenage life, I actually became a vegetarian for many years. And then, as legend has it, I met my now ex-wife's father, who was a colonel in the Army, and asked me how I liked my steak done. And I said, well, actually, I'm a vegetarian. And I think he looked at me and repeated the question, so how do you like your steak? And I said, medium, sir. And I think once I got the taste again, I think I switched back. But, yeah, I spent some time as a vegetarian later in life as well. And my current girlfriend's a vegetarian, so she's trying to get me back into it. And I will eat tofu on an occasion.
So did you ever officially come out to your family as a carnivore before you became an official vegetarian?
I think in my 20s I met with them and admitted many things, that being one of them. Oh, I think they were all over it. My mom used to say, you know, what was it? She didn't say don't bullshit a bullshitter, but she had some line like that, you know. Anything you think you've tried. But I think I got pretty creative, actually. I think I maybe was a little bit better than she was. But, yeah, I had a big confessional when I was 20. That included 20-something. Oh, there it is. And it was a lot of fun. I think I might have been on the set that day, and we just destroyed that place. You
that
know,
would have been cool.
Art department just ripped everything and dropped and knocked stuff over. That's pretty disturbing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a great shot.
Yeah, it is. What the heck?
So, do you remember what Mo did to keep the rats from like breeding, or how did he keep the population under control? Do you have any idea?
I have not. Little rodent condoms? I don't know. No, I don't.
Are they neutered?
They were on the pill. I think most of them. They were responsible.
I just wonder. I mean, the way they breed, it's like
that's true.
I don't know how they kept it under control.
And I think later in life, in my early teen years, or maybe when I was 12, a friend and I decided to get a rat for that very purpose. We thought, this is a great industry. They're like rabbits. They produce. And I think we probably, like most kids with pets, that was good for a week, and then we went on to something else. So I don't know how he did that. I'm sure he separated them, males and females, probably.
Yeah.
I don't know what their various propensities are. If the males probably are more aggressive, I'm thinking, but
yeah.
No, I don't know how he kept the rat population in control.
Just the tricks of the trade. I don't know.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, who's that guy? He looks familiar. He's got quite the fluffy little coat there.
I love all the collars in this movie. They're just awesome.
Yeah, well, it's Technicolor, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was.
I mean, the one you had earlier was just great. The big flare.
Was
collar.
it CinemaScope or was it Technicolor?
It was Technicolor.
It was Technicolor. Yeah. No. Oh, see? Now look, that's some talent, right?
Yeah.
Well, we've all seen the Pizza Rat.
Yeah.
So that was prior to the Pizza Rat.
Yeah.
The famous YouTube Pizza Rat. And look, he just sits. Oh, okay, here we go. Now this was the day actually that Danny Kaye came, I believe. This is the day with the big interview with the guys coming. They try to give me a hard time because they heard about the rat, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. This is the start of the day. And that's right, I'm doing it for Ben.
Mm-hmm.
Captive audience of one. Now, I should have kept that rat.
Yeah.
That'd be worth something now, don't you think?
I think so.
I've got some pretty cool, I've got some of the original. When I was a kid, I don't know why I did this. Somebody suggested it, but I had all of my scripts signed by everybody. Crew, top to bottom, actors, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some pretty cool stuff. I had some of the original drawings for the sets for this and some fun stuff. I have some old storyboards still from Million Dollar Duck. And yeah, I love that kind of stuff. Yeah, I should have kept that marionette.
So, I mean, this movie comes in at like a super tight, like 90 minutes, like exactly. Was there any stuff that was shot or that was in the script that never made it in? Do you remember?
I don't remember. I really don't.
I mean, it doesn't feel like anything's missing, but I'm just curious if there was
No, it was, yeah, I mean, that was the old formula back then, wasn't it? It was 90 minutes and you're out. 92, maybe. I remember this so well. Yeah,
Such a sweet scene.
It's cute.
You're my friend, aren't you? You're my real
So it's kind of funny. This was your first horror film, but I mean, it's something you kept coming back to a lot. I mean, obviously, you did multiple projects with Dan Curtis, which are fantastic, and then you're also in one of my favorite horror made-for-TV films, which is The Midnight Hour.
Which is so funny.
It's really funny.
It's loosely classified as a horror, right? Because it's such a gag.
Yeah, I mean, it's a spoofy horror movie.
Who was the RHO rotting ghoul?
Yeah.
It was Mark Blanc. Mark. He was on a show called Fridays at the time. I remember.
Mark Blankfield.
Mark Blankfield.
Yeah.
Oh, he was awesome. Now he's still around, isn't he? I might have seen him here and there.
It still pops up.
Yeah. He was a lot of fun. That was great. All the cast on that, DeLuise and LeVar, who we've recently reconnected. Dee Dee Fife. I mean, there was a great cast of Sherry Bell. They were all siblings of famous people, right? And who went on to do really nice. Well, not LeVar. LeVar was the real deal.
Yeah.
But there was Sherry Belafonte. There was Dee Dee Pfeiffer, Peter DeLuise. Well, not siblings, but also children. Oh yeah, a harmonica. Oh, now I spin myself stupid, right? I'm about to have some heart problems here.
Yep.
That crazy kid, we told you not to play the harmonica like that. That's what you get. Oh, now I show the scar.
Yep.
Which was pretty low key, I think. I think it was a little pencil drawing down my chest, basically.
Yeah, it's like a little red line. Yeah.
They did a great job in that surgery. You can barely tell.
I have to cut off my chest, fix my heart. I gotta go slow, Ben.
Here, let me show you.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, it actually reads pretty well.
See?
But yeah, so it seems like, horror, and Mutant, you're also in Mutant, of course. So it seems like you keep popping up in horror movies every now and then. I mean, did you like horror movies, or was it just, there were just good jobs that came along?
I did. I went through a whole Fangoria stage. And again, weirdo. Always the old stuff, the Christopher Plummer, the old movies, the weird sort of dark black and white horror flicks, Nosferatu, and I was a big, was it Fangoria was one of them? There was a couple of magazines.
Famous Monsters was the biggie.
Famous Monsters, and I collected those as well, probably at my little 9 to 2 job or whatever it was, my Alpha Books job. Yeah, I was totally into the old horror flicks, vampire stuff in particular, and it was just so disturbing. Those movies, there was something sickening about them, and nothing was even happening. It wasn't even the violent part of it. There was just something uncomfortable about the lighting and the acting and the way everything happened in those movies. So yeah, I was a fan, but completely inadvertent. I think I just got what I went up for, you know. Of course, Midnight Hour was with Jack Bender, who went on to do all of the Lost stuff. And Jack was awesome. And Jack, if you didn't know, was one of the 2 guys in $1 Million Duck. He was the buggy guys. They were I don't know if you saw the movie, but the guys that sort of get me out of trouble and then everybody thinks they kidnapped me. He was the guy with the crazy fro. He had the crazy afro. And that was Jack Bender. I forget the other guy's name. And Jack, I came up... is that the only thing I did with Jack? I think I did a couple of things with him. But anyway, I met him then as an adult, and I was like, oh my God, Jack. And he hired me on the spot for Midnight Hour. And what a sweetheart. We had a lot of fun making that film.
Yeah.
That was silly, of course. It wasn't very horrifying at all, was it? And in particular, the rotting ghoul. He was so funny, Mark. And I think he had a bit of business, as you said, where he had this flap of skin that kept falling off. And he was, even as a ghoul, he was embarrassed by this. And he kept trying to fix this flap of skin back to his face. It was just awful.
I already told her about Ben.
Well, I think the 2 Dan Curtis ones you did are probably the scariest things you ever made, I would say. Burn Offerings and then, of course, Dead of Night, which is really a terrifying little story that you're in.
And that I had seen, well, let's see, Dan, we were doing Burn Offerings, and Melvin Purvis, G-Man, was on, and I remember I was allowed to stay up late to watch that. And I, of course, back in Canada, I was a huge Dark Shadows fan. Loved it, and it was just such a weird horror soap opera, right? I mean, it was the weirdest thing. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with Dan. And Dan, it was one of those things when I went and met him for Burnt Offerings. I went in for the first audition, and he said, "So what do you think?" And this was a thing that they said to me a lot, and I think we all say it as actors, you know, is, "So you want to come play with us?" You know, and I was like, "Yes, I do." And off we went, and then we did that other one. Yeah, that was super disturbing. That was and it was so much fun. I think that's one of the only films I got to be a really evil little character in that thing.
You're really scary in that.
Oh yeah, kid. Mommy, what happened, Mommy? That would be a fun one to look at again. A lot of these I haven't seen since I did them. You know, it's not like I sit around and watch my old movies all the time.
Yeah.
Cut to me sitting at home in my home theater, weeping to my old films. No.
Billy Desmond.
Yeah, exactly. I'm ready for my close-up. I remember this scene vividly. He fell in a rose bush, was what happened. No, okay, so Ben's in there, but wasn't the gag earlier that I pulled it out and it was the marionette, right?
Later when they come.
Oh, it's later.
It's later when they come into
right,
spec. Yeah. And you're like, here he is, and you're like, it's actually the biggest jump in the movie when you go with the puppet, and you're like, oh my god.
And even Campanella gives a little leap.
Yeah.
I think. Now, who is this kid? Because he went on. I think he went on to do the Waltons, didn't he?
Oh, probably.
Wasn't he one of the Waltons?
Looks like it. Yeah.
Hey, kid!
I assume he was not mean in real life on the set.
He was a great kid. Come on, what do you got in the box? I remember that delivery so much. Come on, who is that kid?
Yeah?
How come you don't ever come out? You're a sissy, that's what. I bet you play with dolls just like a girl.
I'm sure he's in the
I
credits.
do not.
Yeah.
Sure you do. Sure.
Say it.
Go on, say it. Do not.
Oh, that's right. Okay, and Ben isn't having it. My buddy, I just made my new friend.
Go on, say it. I will.
That's a terrible shot. Look how overlit it is. It's such a what they call an insert shot. That one too. I think that was shot after the kid left with probably, Felix Silla was a little guy, little person we call him, right? And he was my stand-in. And I was very lucky that I got to continually sort of ask for him. And so he was my stand-in a lot of that stuff. And I'm sure that cutaway shot was after they released all the kids. Ooh, had a little problem with the rats, did you, son?
Now you just sit here, dear.
Oh, the bully gets bullied.
If you people
The little
cared
people.
about the little people of this city.
So I really love the way you, as an actor, when you're lying and telling the whole story. I love the way you do this scene.
Danny,
It's really
this
fun.
boy
Let's
said you
see.
saw some rats attack him.
Oh.
That's a big lie. There were hundreds of them. He sicked them on me.
And this is where Meredith's going, well, something's wrong with
Suppose you
Daddy.
tell us what happened, son.
I was in the alley. He started after me. He fell down in a rose bush.
That's a big lie.
A big
Were you
lie.
picking on this little boy, Henry?
I didn't hurt him.
Henry, if you're lying to me,
He fell in a rose bush.
Meredith isn't having it. Neither's Campanella.
Look, son, this is very important. Did you see any rats?
Just Ben. He stays in the workshop.
Ben?
I told you about
Here we
him.
go.
Oh, here we go. Setting him down the primrose path.
I love this scene.
Just
But
Ben.
rats in his garage.
Mind showing Ben to us?
What are they going to do?
What?
Kill the rat? You're going to arrest him, cuff him, and take him down? Book him, Dano.
It kind of sounds like when they do the news reports through the movie when they're like, we're having this rat problem in the city and the police are out scouring them. And it's like, and then what?
Yeah, exactly. They're going to call Mo DeCesso. We got to get these rats under control.
Break out the trucks of peanut butter.
Exactly. We all know how to save the world from rats now.
All right, now show me Ben.
Sure. Danny!
just met Ben.
Oh, and he's not like, oh, look at my cocky little. And I think am I gonna shoot
Rose bush, Mrs. Gray.
Red there one more dirty look before he leaves? No. Oh, no. Oh, a little smirk on that brat. I think I have that same thing when I do something wrong now. Checking. Let's see, the Came, huh? That's somewhere in Hollywood, I'm assuming. Oh, the unsuspecting nurses. And their bare legs with their their medicinal shoes. Classic. Where's the chair? Get on the chair.
Come in.
Oh, here Meredith is saying.
Danny, remember our deal? Always the whole truth?
Mm-hmm. Oh, look at that look.
A little stinker.
Yeah.
Were you telling the truth to Mr. Kirtland about that other boy?
Little subliminal Disney plug there behind you.
I don't have a deal with Mr. Kirtland.
Tomorrowland. Love it.
Danny, why?
Putting poison underneath all the
So we
houses.
touched on it for a minute, but do you remember anything about working with Phil Carlson? I mean, because he was a really veteran director. He made some really classic crime films. He had a really busy career. He did 2 of the Matt Helm movies with Dean Martin right before this, so he was a pretty big director.
He was. I don't think I knew that as much.
Talk about it?
But Phil was an older guy at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he must
This was
have
near
been
the end of his career, yeah.
in his late 60s even, I'm thinking. But he was just a softie. I mean,
Am I gonna die soon?
you know, I find, for me as a kid, everybody I worked with, really, there wasn't a bad seed in the lot. And Phil was one of those guys who was just so great with kids, I'm assuming. I mean, he was with me. And just was nurturing and made me feel safe and protected. And it's a weird thing, you know, being an actor. And like I said, when you're a kid, you're having fun. You're just make-believe. But, you know, you put your heart on your sleeve sometimes. And, you know, not everybody, most people fight back tears, right? So it's a weird thing to cry in front of people or sort of open up your emotional self. So. But he was great. He really was. He was a doll. He always would come over with a little whisper in the ear and a suggestion to make an adjustment. He was pretty good at taking direction. I don't know where it came from. I was just kind of a pro from the get-go. I got how to find my key light, hit my mark. You know, they used to call me One Take Montgomery. Seriously, that was the thing back in the day.
No wonder you got hired so much.
Yeah, and I think I kind of owned that. You know, I was pretty easy to work with.
Hi, Ben.
Now, not too long after this, there are a couple of credits that pop up that never seem to actually go anywhere. For example, there's a pilot you made for NBC called The Second Family Tree. Did that ever air?
I thought it aired.
It's not on your filmography, but there's like articles about it being made, but it just seems to disappear.
How funny. Yeah, that was Nigel and Carol.
I love you,
I
Ben.
forget their last name. And it was a very, if I'm thinking about the right one, oh no, Happy Endings was the other one I'm thinking, so I might be confusing them. Second Family Tree, oh yeah, that was with Gail Strickland, I think. And I think that was the, I may be confusing that with a show called Happy Endings, which was Chris Beaumont's real story, I think, how he had to take care of his siblings, that's right. And the Second Family Tree, I think, was kind of a Brady Bunch kind of concept. And I think my little brother was deaf in the movie and was deaf in real life. And I remember seeing the screening of that and this great moment where I think he had a few brothers and they were all hearing impaired. And one was at one side of we'd seen the screening. One was at one side of the theater and the other was at the other. And I remember being so fat that these guys were in a full conversation at opposite sides of the room, and I thought that was pretty hip. I've forgotten most of it now, but I did a thing called A Man in the City, or The Man in the City, with Anthony Quinn, another, oh my gosh, I mean, monster of a talent, and what a doll. I mean, you know, these guys, like most actors, are they're interesting looking if they're not handsome, you know, or beautiful, and they have this magnetism, and you know, I mean, he was amazing, and I just fell in love with him, and he was such a softie, just a big softie, and so, you know, I was really lucky
Hard, damn it.
that I got to get a lot of people that were really great with kids, you know, really made me feel safe and comfortable. And I never wanted to leave. I never wanted to leave the set. I never wanted to stop. The first movie I did with Dean Jones and Sandy Duncan, the $1 Million Duck. Of course, everybody on that. Now that I knew all those, Joe Flynn and all, you know, Cesar Romero, all the guys that were in, you know, the Disney stable, if you will. But I remember when we finished More Classic Ladies with the Rats. Works every time. Oh, and in the steam bath, but nothing too sexy.
You got to keep that PG rating.
Yeah, exactly. But a little risque. But Dean Jones, I remember when $1 Million Duck finished and we were at the Rat Party. And I was kind of like, what is this? What do you mean? This is, I was so distraught and sad by that. And Dean took me outside and he sat me on the curb and he said, this is the way it goes. You know, this is what we do, and we'll never lose touch. We'll always be the best of friends. And I think I cried my eyes out. And yeah, I was so sad at having to leave all my new best friends, you know. So I was very lucky that all these guys were so good to me, and I only had one actor who shall remain nameless in one episodic thing that I did that just he didn't like kids, you know, just didn't like them, and he was, I didn't like him either, you know. But that was one of the rare ones. Everybody from the crew was my best buddies, you know.
I would hang out. Not like that kid.
I guess so. I was a little cutie, and I was definitely very personable, very you know, affable. I really liked people. I think very much like my mother. My mother was very. Yeah, it's funny to see this after all these years. And of course she was there, you know, my mom had to be there all the time, so she was always there on the set with me, and she passed quite a while ago now, but she was my buddy.
We have to be careful. You scare people.
How did she feel about your brief excursion into rat breeding?
Oh, she, you know, I think she probably endorsed it, and she knew it wouldn't last. Yeah, me and a neighbor kid, I think, decided we'd go and get us some rats, and I think we did something with frogs as well. Frogs, and I think I was saying to somebody else earlier that, you know, when this movie came out, Willard had been out. I don't know what else. There wasn't a whole lot of, like, there was a TV movie at the time about bees, killer bees, and when we were doing this, there was an influx of these animals gone wrong films, and there was one that was my favorite, which was called Pigs. And I don't think they ever made it, but it was about a farmer who used to routinely tease and abuse his pigs. And one day the pigs had enough, and they stormed the castle, and they took him down and mercilessly killed him, and then set their sights on the town, where they all went in and, you know, single-handedly, one by one, killed all these the townspeople. And I remember looking at that as a kid. For some reason, the script came across my plate, but there was all these terrible, you know, killer animal movies. Of course, the birds being really the first one, I suppose.
Well, like, Willard really kicked off the whole 70s cycle, you know. So, I mean, Willard and Ben were, like, right at the start, but right around the time this came out was Night of the Lepus. Did you ever see that one? Yeah,
no, I didn't, but...
Yeah, the Killer Bunny movie, which is Ben is a much better movie than Night of the Lepus.
Not to be confused with Monty Python, the killer bunny in the beginning of the Holy Grail, right? Run away! Oh, it's just a bloody rabbit.
The rabbit's got a mean streak a mile wide.
killer line. Oh, Lord.
But now, I guess, I don't know how much you were in the loop on this, but because Willard was such a hit, obviously, they wanted to spend a lot of money promoting Ben. And I loved, they came up with some really creative ways to, like, push this movie when it opened. Like, for example, they had, I think the funniest one they had was at River College in Sacramento, was where they would always have the yearly rat decathlon. And so,
really,
yeah. So the year when Ben came out, they were having the 10th rat decathlon right before it came out, and so they promised that the winner would get a crawl-on part in Ben. I don't know if that actually happened or how you would even recognize the rat if it was even in there. But
I just don't. It sounds vaguely familiar somewhere in the back of my mind, but I don't know. I don't know who that rat. Oh, there he is. That's him. No, I'm kidding. Well, they definitely had. This was one of the talents that Ben had, but also a lot of them, they were plank, you know, they would stick to a plank and go up and down the pipes and stuff, and not all the rats could do that. This was a crazy cool set. They had these, you know, little sewer tunnels like this, and then when I go, I think this is where it is, right? I go into the kingdom. And, oh, well, actually, this is the famous crawling through the tunnel where the thousands, and he says, "No, get back, it's my buddy Danny, don't eat him." Just eat his peanut butter. Yeah, there it is. There's the tunnel that leads within. Yes, we go into the kingdom now. And that set was awesome. That thing was huge. It was like 3 stories high and took up most of a sound stage. And, or, you know, again, I was a little guy. Maybe it's not as big as I thought.
Well, got a lot of mileage out of it. I mean, that's the whole last 20 minutes of the movie.
For sure, yeah. Oh, wasn't it this? Maybe not. And of course, I'm about to have heart failure. Here they come. No, he's not an edible morsel. He's my friend. Thanks, Ben.
He's much nicer than Willard.
I never noticed how rat-like I look, actually. I've got the little beady eyes. I've got the little choppers. I've got the 2 new front seat. That's right. Yeah, there you go. So you got the scurrying rats. Some are standing on their hind legs. Some are going up and down the thing. And everybody looks like they know what they're doing. Yeah, there were the ones that did that little preening thing with their hands, and that was like an on-cue thing
You sure
that
have a big family, Ben.
Great line. Yeah, now we're going to pull back and reveal this, right? It was a really impressive set. I don't know who did the set design on this, but clearly he was a monster.
I'd better go now. It's getting kind of
Thanks, Ben.
Where am I going to get yelled at?
Somebody tame that thing on the side of my head, would you?
Showing me around your house.
Get that curly cue back behind that ear. Ridiculous.
Suppose your mom didn't run up and kind of go, nah,
She did. Of course. My mother was forever spitting on napkins and cleaning my face because I was a mucky little pup. I was everywhere.
It's so awkward.
So, did you? I mean, obviously, you stayed in acting. A lot of kid actors, tend to drop out once they hit puberty. But I mean, you really stuck in there for quite a while. Is it just something you wanted to keep doing, just for fun?
It was a natural. I took a few years off at the end of high school, and I think I had an agent the whole time. Well, I would intermittently do a thing here and there, and then in my 20s. I was very disappointed because I was, I looked like the boy next door. I was very, very wholesome and sweet-faced, as a young guy, and I wanted to be De Niro. I was very sick. I did a movie with Susan Onspach in Canada, and she introduced me to John Lenn, who is an acting teacher who was Strasberg's right-hand man at the Actors Studio, and he was, oh my gosh, this guy was brilliant and amazing. So I got into his acting class, and I was so into the work. It was really deep and rich, and I really responded to that form of method acting that he was doing, and so I was so, in acting class you get to do the greatest material of all time, right? You're doing Shakespeare, you're doing Odets, you're doing all this great stuff. And and I was going out, my agents were largely television at the time. And I was going out on, like, She's the Sheriff, like Suzanne Summers, like a sitcom. And then I wouldn't get it. And I was getting very kind of indignant about the whole thing. And so I went behind the scenes at that point and started learning about directing. And I had a friend who was a commercial producer. And I did every job. I did wardrobe and grip and electro, and I sort of worked my way up that way. So I made a conscious decision because I was kind of fed up and I couldn't get what I wanted. Mm-hmm. And maybe not the smartest choice. I maybe, if I'd stuck with it, who knows, I might have done a series and directed through that. So, but yeah, I sort of shied away from the acting. This is a great scene.
I saw one that was on Danny's neck. Rats, did they bite you?
What happened?
It was
just my buddies.
Did you open your window again, Danny?
Rats are my brother.
Of course. Of course. What do you mean, of course? Don't you know what's going on in this city?
Such a little
Friends,
turd.
Mother, they wouldn't hurt me.
I was in trouble. I don't care.
Henry.
She's like, something's wrong with my son. I don't. He's got a screw loose.
Weren't they, Danny? Tell me the truth.
He fell in a rose bush.
Oh, sticking to his story. Attaboy.
Lied to us, Danny.
Look. Now I'm becoming an evil little guy. A little evil in this one, too. Oh, that's funny. Oh, kicking back in my robe. And
Just got scared, and then the others got scared.
So now there were two big guys on this movie who carried over from Willard, and that would be the producer, who was Mort Briskin, and the writer, who was Gilbert Ralston. Did you deal with those two guys much at all?
Gilbert, I don't remember so much. Mort, I do, because, the producer is always the head honcho, big guy on the set, and Mort was... He was an archetypical producer. You could feel it when you walked in. He was the guy who said no all the time, right? Come, ask me anything, no. But yeah, again, another guy who was just... They were so good with me as a kid. I was very, very lucky. They really made me feel welcome and special.
My rats.
So.
They wouldn't kill anybody.
How did you happen to name one of your rats Ben?
I just thought it was a nice name.
Coincidence.
Really?
Can you make them do what you want?
Silly.
I can make him eat you tonight. You keep pushing it, buddy.
I'm gonna kill them. I heard it on the radio.
Boy, what a little turd, though, huh? Everybody's all mad at me, and look at me. I'm just like, yeah, whatever. I don't care.
I guess I don't know that.
So, like, I mean, obviously this was a hit. Like, Willard was a hit, this was a hit, and they kept reissuing them as like a double feature. I think my favorite one is there was a big poster on, remember, it says a Tear 'em Up double feature.
Oh, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, that went on for like years. They kept bringing both these movies out.
I remember.
So, like, did you ever do any kind of promotion for the movie, or at all? Did you go to radio stations or any screenings or anything?
I don't think I really did back then. I don't think so. I remember so much the triple feature, though. I mean, it used to happen with the Planet of the Apes. Remember, they'd play like all five of them in a row, and I was a big fan.
Like, go ape tonight. Watch all.
Exactly. And it was at the theater, even more so, right? And then the Lorena down here used to do like triple features of Don Knotts, the Ghost of Mr. Chicken and the Reluctant Astronaut, and I would love that. I'd go and I'd be gone for hours watching that stuff. But, no, like I said, I probably saw this when it first came out, and then that was that. And I was off doing other stuff.
Fine, now you stay here.
But, yeah, it was a big...
Just in case
people recognized me. Oh, look, there's my little finger. Is that my finger with the...
Oh, is that what happened?
Oh, no. I thought I just saw the Band-Aid on my finger.
Look, you were holding it kind of funny, so maybe...
And they, I'd have to go and... the technology was not so great back then, and they'd have to take this wrap off, which had undoubtedly fused with the blood. Oh, it was awful. I had to do that every day. I had to change at lunchtime. It was a real bummer. But I guess I worked around it. City workers. Here we go. Get down there and get some rats.
And did they ever talk to you about making a sequel? I mean, it seems odd there was never...
They did.
Yeah. Why wasn't there a third movie?
I don't know. Just never got it together. I think Phil died not too long after that.
It did some more after
or was
that.
It Mort maybe died?
Mort probably did, yeah. Because Phil did a couple more. He did like Frame with Joe Don Baker and some other stuff. You know?
Yeah, I think one of the producers, maybe it was Mort. So, yeah, it was poised. There was the rumor that we were going to do it, and then it just never came to fruit. And I went on and did many things on the tail of this, I guess. So, I remember during this we were in Paramount Pictures, and I got to meet Lucille Ball, which was I was the hugest Lucy fan, and she didn't have a whole lot of time for me, unfortunately, when I actually got on the set. But she was fairly nice, and they were also making. There was some series back then, Somebody and Me, maybe, and it was about a couple that had a monkey. Do you remember? It was a maybe did a season or two, and it was a comedy series, not a sitcom, but they had a monkey, and I was all about getting to that set. I wanted to meet that monkey, and the Brady Bunch were filming there as well. So I got to meet all those guys. My sister Tanis did a kind of a classic episode of the Brady Bunch. And I ended up later going to school with Mike Lookerland, who we became friends and actually had a crush on the same girl, I think, of that later in life. But so it was pretty fun working on Paramount, right? I mean, and I got to work on it, like MGM when it was still MGM. It was the old lot, and yeah, I was pretty lucky getting to tool around. And when I was under contract to Universal, they had the zoom in, the classic zoom. I remember this guy too. Some of these death scenes definitely disturbed me, especially that one cop. That kind of haunted me. That guy, he was so traumatized.
I mean, the body count in this movie is pretty high.
It is.
It's way higher than Willard.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, they're all kind of clumped together, but still, yeah. Willard's only, a couple of folks.
I remember this, too. It's funny, because, again, I think I was around when we shot this. I seem to remember being there for the shooting of this. Now, I'm not so sure that a few rats weren't hurt during the process of that right there. He was kind of throwing some of those rats around a little bit.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, but how does
it's
being
true.
bitten by 10 rats kill you?
No, that's in Willard, too. It's like just a couple of rats kind of go up and they're like, and you fall over dead.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they gnawed straight through to your intestines. What exactly? They hit an artery and you started bleeding to death?
Yeah. Well, like I said, it's got to be PG, so you don't get, shots of like rats going like burrowing in you,
Yeah, I mean, that and a lot of, like the B movie, it made sense, right? Because they were all over and, I don't know. It's a good question.
Don't lose sleep.
He survived it. And this guy went on to do a lot of stuff, too, this actor.
And I ran.
And what's,
what good's a dead hero?
You can see this is directing, right? The director directed all these guys to be traumatized in a very particular way. They're all, I don't know why. It's kind of incongruous. It doesn't really make sense, right? That they would be so traumatized by this. But it's very interesting. I think it really adds to the disturbing nature of the film.
You would think that a city worker would have seen some pretty gnarly stuff.
Pretty tough stuff down in the sewers. But yeah, him and the cop, and they had a very similar sort of, almost like a childlike reaction. It was definitely Phil Carson's directing on that.
Yeah.
So very interesting how a director sort of creates a vibe in a film and performances that are consistent like that. Mm-hmm. Oh, and there he is crying away. Now that looks suspiciously like glycerin to me on the eyes, right?
That's a pretty thick tear there.
Yeah. I think I was crying okay, but it doesn't always show up on film when you do that, right? So they had the glycerin tears streaming down the cheeks. That's pretty thick. You're right. Good eye.
So, I mean, were you there on the set a lot when they were doing the stuff with the flamethrowers, the whole like assault scene at the end? Do you remember any of that, or was it done?
I seem to remember it, but yeah, I think as actors, a lot of times when there's big special stunt days, it's everybody. It's kind of cool, right? I mean, they're making movie magic, so I think a lot of people are kind of invited to enjoy that, when there's stunts and big. Special effects like that. And I remember even as a kid, and they had nowhere near the seamless CGI that they do now.
Yeah.
But of course they weren't burning any of those rats. So they did the old what's the word I'm looking, not really montage, but
well, there is one shot where you can see the flames with like an optical. You can see the optical of the rat shakes moving over the fire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's
kind of a relief to see because the rats are okay. It's just fake enough where you're like, phew.
Yeah, yeah, because they just basically did the old double exposure.
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah. I'm curious. Did you ever see the remake of Willard?
I did, but I just noticed they repeated the theme here.
Yeah.
In the theme, it was da 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 da.
It's a couple. He kind of sneaks it in a few times,
yeah.
like really subtly. You're like, oh, there it is.
Exactly, because it's all about the kid and his friendship, right?
Yeah.
He's a kind of stupid kid. Back into the thing. What was the question?
Oh, the remake of Willard. Did you with Crispin Glover?
I did, and I'd known Crispin for a long time because we were contemporaries at the time, and we would go out on the same auditions. I'd always run it, and Crispin was always an unusual cat,
Yeah.
I mean, and later in life, in my mid-20s, I was living off of Melrose. And I'd see Crispin, I don't know if you ever knew, but he used to ride on his old bike. He had an old classic bike, and he'd have an old, World War I helmet on, and he was just crazy. And he was so much fun, he was everywhere. And I thought he did a killer job, actually. I thought it had a great vibe, that film. Maybe we should talk about doing Ben, because I was pretty impressed, I must say. I saw it and I was like, wow, he kind of had a little homage. It was nostalgic and kind of had that vibe, but it was very Tim Burton, wasn't it? It was very
kind of
dark.
and
very, very cool. I thought he did a great job with that. What's Crispin doing these days?
That's a good question, actually.
Yeah, I really don't know, because he was really having a great time doing a lot of quirky stuff.
Yeah, he was popping up in little roles for a while, but I haven't seen him around in a while.
Drive the rats in the tank area.
That same goes for the crews of 6th and Western, 5th and Van Ness, and 8th and Wilshire.
Okay, I'll take care of it. First manhole covers off. As soon as the fire department is ready with the backup crews. Jackhammers, get those seals off as soon as you get to them. What about the shotgun? Good luck.
Oh my God, we were, when it comes to all the muck and the mire, we were covered in mud. But of course, it was all stage mud. Thank goodness, wasn't any real sewage going on. But again, as a kid, what's not to like? Jump in the mud and roll around and be chased by rats. I'm dying. Cops and robbers, right? It's always the best when you get shot. I'm going down. So it was a lot of fun actually doing all that stuff, crawling around in the mud. And
your mom wasn't shaking her head going, oh, they're living with him now?
I think she was always pretty protective. My mom was always, she was like, this is par for the course.
Yeah.
I had a thing, I don't know what I did when I was a kid, but somehow I'd get a new pair of jeans, and there was some game we played where we ran and slid on the ground. I would tear the knees out of my jeans. Like, I would get in so much trouble for this. It was just the endless thing. I was always tearing to get a brand new pair of jeans. I'd come home that day with the knees out. She'd be like, "What are you doing out there?" But no, it's tons of fun. Are you kidding? Being soaked in mud and covered in blood and, anything.
Run, Ben. Run, please. Please. All right, I'll go. You go too, Ben.
The movie I did, Into the Fire, again, every actor loves a death scene. They love anything, When I did, actually, as a side note, with Oliver Reed, when we did Burn Offerings, oh, he loved it, man. There was the scene where the trees come out and attack him, and of course, they just reversed the film. They had him on, and then they whipped him off, and when they played it backwards, it looked like they wrapped around. And he was cut to pieces, and he loved it. He wanted to fight and get punched, and you couldn't do anything bad to Oliver. He was not prissy on set at all. Bring it on, smack me, don't just, So, we love doing that stuff as actors, and it's always fun to get really dirty and messed up. I was going to say something else.
Well, the fun thing about Burn Offerings, in a way, you kind of get two death scenes. You get the swimming pool scene where you almost die.
Yeah.
Which is, that is one of the most realistic drowning scenes I've ever seen. I don't know how you did that. And then you get the chimney at the end,
We had a lot of fun doing that, and my parents were mortified. It was my dad. My dad didn't always come to the set. It was usually my mom. My dad was working, doing other things. But he came up for that scene, and he wasn't convinced about this Reed character. He didn't like Oliver. He wasn't sure. It better be. So, there was a lot of caution. But Ollie and I had it worked out, man. We had it worked out. I knew what I was doing. We had oxygen tanks under there that we could, avail ourselves of. And we made believe just right. Yeah, we were good at it. It was a lot of fun.
Remember that scene when that first came on TV when I was a little kid, when it first aired on network TV? I remember the next day all the kids at school were just traumatized by that scene.
Yeah, I guess so.
Is my dad going to try to drown me in the pool?
It was, that was an overall, it plodded along that film. It was sort of a sickening, slow pace that it moved at. Because there wasn't a whole lot of events, right? I mean...
Until the last 15 minutes,
and there was the horrible sound when Bette broke her arm behind her back in bed. I think that was the chauffeur. Yeah. It was such a sweetheart. I mean, Anthony was like the softest, most soft-spoken guy, and he's the takeaway from that one. People usually come up to me and say, great movie, scary, the chauffeur. And he's still around, I believe, isn't he? Yeah, I think so. I think he's done a few of the horror shows and some of that stuff.
It's one of those movies that people always just kind of stuck in the back of their head. It always kind of messed them up a little bit.
Yeah,
kids,
just messed with your head.
Yeah. Well, just like Dead of Night,
I guess so.
Actually, I'll still break it out and just show the Bobby segment occasionally at Halloween. Still people. Have you ever watched it with other people before?
I don't think so.
It's just funny because probably 4 or 5 times I've shown it to multiple people,
friends,
and always the very end, the big reveal at the end. With Bobby. Every time people always make the sound. They go like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Isn't that fun?
Every single person. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun one. That was definitely a lot of fun. No rats were killed during the making of this film, to my knowledge. Now here we go. Here's the great flamethrower scene. And it's going to look like they're burning all the rats, but it's just...
once again, the SPCA was there for the whole movie. So.
Yeah.
case folks are wondering.
Well, thank goodness. You know.
There's a movie called, did you ever see Food of the Gods? It came out a few years after
Yes.
this. Yeah, which that was not
kosher.
approved. Yeah, they
My
actually-
friend's dad did Kingdom of the Spiders. I don't know what happened on that one, but I'm sure there was some casualties.
It looked like there's a few smushed spiders on that one.
Yeah, I'm thinking probably so. Yeah, so that's all CGI stuff. Which is pretty seamless for back then, actually. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when anything you can keep as a pet, even if it's a rat, I think people are really touchy about that.
Absolutely.
You know? No, don't hurt it.
And again, another guy crawling out of there, like, more than being physically hurt by this, he's mentally damaged. It's so weird.
Yeah.
He was like more traumatized than he was like, ow, you know? They have, they're like poison darts, these rats. They give you one bite and you're going down.
But I do love how they met the rat that's playing Ben, of course, how he really looks like a general during this whole sequence.
Oh,
how
yeah.
He's looks like he's commanding them. He's like, yeah. It's all.
It was just, literally, it was double exposure.
You could see it in like a couple of shots back. You could actually see the black dots moving over.
Well, there you go. You can see it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although it looks like mud spilling up, so that's working. Those are dead rats, not real dead rats. Those are fake rats.
Lots of Ben puppets.
Exactly. Oh, I know. I was starting to say that when I did the movie Into the Fire, I made it a silly acting choice where this kid wasn't from Canada or from the cold weather. So I decided to wear sneakers. Not that anybody would notice. It was something that was maybe just for me. Stupidest move ever because I was freezing my ass off the whole time. And at the end of the movie, I get blown up supposedly. So I'm half and shredded. Well, you know, we probably spent like 2 weeks doing all that end stuff. And it was sub-zero weather out there. And I was freezing my butt off. It was like one of the most terrible jokes. Normally people love to get messy and mucky. And I thought I would too. But then, oh my gosh, not in the cold weather. Not a good idea.
Not when there's frostbite involved, you know.
What's that?
Not when there's frostbite involved.
Yeah, exactly. The boys, I wouldn't think it'd be two detectives going down in the sewers chasing these rats, right? Oh, this is almost the end right now. Wow, I've been talking my head off. I don't even know what the hell happened here.
Now, did they premiere the movie? Did you go to like a screening out when it came out?
For sure. Yeah. They always had pretty big premieres for stuff.
What's interesting is I know when Willard came out, they were worried about when they were promoting it because they thought, I guess the stereotype was that women were afraid of rats and mice, so they wouldn't come see the movie. And of course, it turned out that women loved it. They were like, they loved the rats. You know, they were like, no, don't hurt the rats. You know,
isn't that funny? Like my mom and me.
Yeah,
same thing.
So I wondered, like, when you saw this, when this came out, did you hear any audience members who were like, no, don't kill Ben?
You know, well, the screening was largely with the crew and cast, so no, none of us were fooled or tricked. But I think we're all pretty impressed by. Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
That's a classic right there. Yeah, I think we all thought it worked really well, you know, because it was all bits and pieces, as you know, when you shoot stuff, and they shoot out of sequence a lot of stuff. And all of this stuff really works because of the editing, right? So cutting to him and his perch and back to the rats and the way they put it together really sells it. So, yeah, I think we were all pretty impressed with it.
The music does a lot of it, too.
It's pretty good.
It's a really fun score.
Who did the score on
It's
this?
Walter Shore.
Oh, it was Walter.
Yeah.
Okay, so he did the score as well.
Yeah, I did the score.
I've since made friends with someone I met years ago, Phil Springer, who also did a lot of scores during this. He was the guy that wrote Santa Baby and a bunch of Sinatra hits. And he was working the studios. He was doing a lot of these soundtracks back then. The 70s was and these were big scores, too. These are like orchestral, you know, bringing the whole orchestra stuff.
Well, Walter had big shoes to fill because Willard, the score was done by Alex North, who's one of the great golden age Hollywood composers. You know, so but I think he did his work was just as good, if not.
But Walter was pretty big at the time.
Yeah, Walter's pretty big too. Yeah. I mean, Alex North is like a.
There you go. That's one of the bad CGI shots. Actually, they just showed. Yeah, but those are real flame blowers, that's for sure. Oh, that's Ben. He's tough.
I love how the one rat at the bottom looks so calm. He's kind of bathing himself.
Now, of course, we know this is his perch, right? We've established this as his throne.
Mm-hmm.
And he stays pretty consistent through the whole thing. This is about the most upset we've seen Joseph Campanella.
Yeah.
He's not a fan. They burn him and then they wash him. They burn him and they spray him. It's kind of a weird thing. Well, boys, and O'Connor has the stogie the whole time,
mm-hmm.
but he is smoking. Wait, does he finally smoke at the end? I forget. I think he might light up a cig right
If
now.
they were 4 feet tall, we'd lose.
The territorial imperative, Lebensraum. Living room. That's all they want.
That's all any of us want.
Living room.
Yeah, here we go. Now his character arc is complete.
Because in the 70s, smoking's okay.
Yeah, it was cool.
Everybody light up. Nice, thank you. And now he just chokes and keels over sideways after all that.
You know, you do look like Mark Twain.
It is funny though how actors.
Oh, was that the gag?
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot that. Mark Twain.
It's funny we've gone so many years without smoking in movies being a common thing. It's like it's funny just how actors don't even sound the same anymore. It's like just the texture's different,
truly.
you know?
Yeah. Oh, especially Bet. She was a chain smoker, that one.
Yeah. Like Mercedes McCambridge.
Oh, look at that little guy. He's so sad.
Oh, now here's Michael.
This was really when it came in, right?
Yeah.
This was the only time.
Yeah.
The end credits. Mm-hmm. Oh, but a little over the end here.
Yeah.
So
So
not
we have
just
the last
the
scene
credits.
here, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it kind of goes out for a minute, then it comes back in when the titles roll, yeah. So, I mean, people have been debating for decades about the ending of this movie. I mean, it's an open ending, obviously. You don't know. I mean, so when you were shooting it or when you watched the movie, do you think that Ben made it?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, he wasn't dying.
Okay, good.
No.
I always hope so.
He was way too strong.
Yeah.
Maybe I just...
You're really going for the tears here.
What? No, I hear it. I think I hear it. Oh, there he is. Oh. Now, that might be considered, they do this thing where they drug the animals, right? Mm-hmm. Especially in death scenes.
Yeah.
So I think there was a little ether going on here.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get well, Ben. I'll get well. We'll get well. We'll get well, Ben.
Oh, yeah, I always kept a first aid kit handy there, just in case.
Sir, it's okay.
I assume you're really crying here.
Yeah, that's the real deal. And now I've got, not so much glycerin on this one, huh?
That looks real.
Yeah. That was, I remember, particularly at nighttime, and I was like, why do we have to use these? And I think that's probably when I first learned about glycerin. And then the other thing is they had a Vicks stick that they would blow through backwards, and it would make your eyes sting. Oh. There we go. Look at that credit.
Ben song.
Oh, no, he's looking pretty healthy there, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's looking right at us. He's like, I'm coming back. Don't mess with me. Oh, top building. Top building. Top building.
Yeah, you get top billing in your second movie.
Yeah, not bad. I don't think I did in the opening credits, but at the end they gave it to me. Boy, and that's all they gave credit for, huh?
Yeah.
And then that's that? Where's the crew?
They got,
Does the crew
There's
come
the crew
on
at
later?
the, well, they had longer credits at the beginning. They're playing
At the
over
beginning.
opening.
Oh, right. They were doing it that way
During
then.
Willard,
Yeah.
Well, it's
Oh,
Ben, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, that was a lot of fun.